Hey guys, welcome back to the Gear Channel. So if you saw the title, yeah, we're talking about Project X today. So I saw a recent Facebook post, and there was a lot of hateful comments following it, and it was all in regards to Project X and its current configuration. Now it's been a couple of years since this thing's been turned into a golf cart, and I wanted to touch on this. I did a little research on some of the history. I found out some interesting things, and I'd like to share it with you. So if we're going to do that properly, we got to go back to 1965, and a fellow by the name of George Elliott was employed by Argus Publishing, Popular Hot Rodding, and he saw the benefit of having a dedicated project car for the magazine, as other companies were doing the same thing, and they were getting lots of traction with tech articles with the young readers. So he found a car for sale. It was in Santa Monica. It was listed for $700. It was a 1957 Chevy 210 two-door, and it was salmon pink in color, and it had a 292 inline six-cylinder in it. Anyway, they purchased the car. Now there's a lot of information out there that they bought it for $250. George is on record for saying that he paid $700 for the car. So I'm willing to believe in what George is. He was the guy that bought the car. He was there when this all went down. So anyway, they purchased the car, and what they did with it at first was very budget-minded mods based around the very young reader buying his first car. And they did things like, I think the very first article was they steam cleaned the engine compartment, they put floor mats in the car, they employed George Bears to actually stitch up some slip-on seat covers for the car, very basic modifications. And then it progressed into engine and drivetrain mods. B&M Transmissions came on board and helped them out with that. And back in those days, readers were actually encouraged to write into the magazine and make suggestions of what they'd like to see this car turn into. And of course, you had to wait a month later for the next issue to come out to see what happened with the car. So anyway, that's how they did things back then. No internet, no email back then. You had to do a handwritten letter and send it into Argus Publishing, Popular Hot Rodding, and see what happened. Anyway, went through many transformations. The car had mechanical fuel injection on it. It had cross ram manifolds, many transmissions, and quick change rear ends. They did exhaust modifications, lots of paint and body mods, suspension modifications. Everything kind of blew up. And with one thing that was different between Popular Hot Rodding and others, the other magazines would do a modification on a specific vehicle, and then that vehicle would move on down the road, whereas Popular Hot Rodding stuck with that same car, that 57 Chevy, and all their modifications were made on that. So it became a real a staple, a household name, Project X. Anyway, fast forward to 2007, GM Performance. This was 2007 was actually the silver anniversary, the 50-year celebration of the 1957 Chevy, and GM Performance thought it would be cool to actually take the Project X and give it a complete facelift. And a lot of high-tech stuff went into this car at that point. They put in C6 Corvette frame rails in the car, Corvette front suspension. They narrowed the rear frame rails 5 inches, and they installed a push-button C8 Corvette shifter in the console. A special designer was brought in to modify the interior and design the interior. Lots of high-tech whizzy stuff went into the car for this silver anniversary deal. And it was all, of course, centered around their brand new 427 all aluminum GM crate engine. So this was the focal point of this whole build, and to also celebrate the 57 Chevy. So it made an amazing facelift at that point. and probably the nicest the car had ever been. And as time went on, they had a GM 502 Ramjet in it and several different modifications. Time went on, they put a LSX in it, and then Lucky and Tony got a hold of it at Hot Rod Garage, kind of restored it to its former glory. They put a 671 supercharger with a pair of Hollies and a set of Krager reels on the car to bring it back to its former Hollywood Nights movie glory. So it was portrayed in 1980 in the movie Hollywood Nights with Tony Danza, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Fran Drescher appeared in that movie. The Project X, in my opinion, was the star of the show. Apparently, according to George, they blew up 2 engines in the making of that movie. It was noted that Tony was not very good at driving stick, and he grenaded 2 engines producing that movie. So that was interesting. George also mentioned that at one point that car was stolen. They had taken it to a local body shop down the road, and the car, it had been there for a long period of time, and they kept phoning to check on the progress of the car, and they weren't getting much feedback from the body shop. And George happened to be on his way home one night, driving through his neighborhood, and he spotted the car sitting on jack stands in a parking lot, stripped of all its drivetrain and all its goodies. Anyway, they got the car back. It progressed to make different changes and modifications, lots of tech articles on this car. It made over 91 covers. It made over there was 91 stories, and I forget how many covers it made. It was just an amazing amount, and it wasn't just on popular hot rodding. Eventually, Argus publishers got absorbed by Peterson Publishing, and that was the thing with the magazine companies at that time. They were all struggling for newsstand space and subscriptions, and if you weren't absorbed by a bigger parent company, a larger corporation, that you just didn't survive. And an interesting part of this whole deal is in 2010, Peterson Publishing was actually moving offices. They were changing locations, and they decided to do a complete purge of their office. And all the documents and all the archives and photographs previous to 2010 were all thrown straight in the dumpster and lost forever. They all went out to the county landfill. So that was the sad part of the story. So when I did a little bit of my history and research on the whole deal, some timelines and things were sketchy. Of course, I watched a podcast with George Elliott, and he was there right from the start, and I tend to believe everything he says. Certainly they said they bought the car for $250. I don't know if that's true or not. George didn't confirm that, and he was on record for saying he bought it for $700. So I'm inclined to believe the guy that was there at the time. Anyway, yeah, portrayed in the movie, many modifications. Like I say, this was the only magazine that was big on doing tech articles on one specific car, so it really became a staple in our car culture. Now time goes on. 2021 is when it made its conversion to EV. So GM Performance took the car once again, and they teamed up with Canazzi Racing, and it was Canazzi that actually did the EV conversion. It took about 30 days to do that conversion. They also lowered the car about 2 inches because now the exhaust system is gone. It's deleted. And the funny thing about that is the car, the weight previous with its engine and drivetrain and all its components removed, and they installed this electric system, and the weight difference is almost zero. The car weighs exactly the same, almost exactly the same as it did prior to and after the conversion. So that particular motor makes around 340 horsepower, and I think it's 340 foot-pounds, something of that nature. The battery is a lithium-ion battery. It's a 400 volt battery, 400 volt motor, lithium-ion battery. The battery weighs 700 pounds. It was placed in the trunk of the car, and extra structure had to be made to accommodate that weight. The front end was dropped 2 inches. What else could I tell you? They incorporated the C8 Corvette shifter to work with that direct drive motor. There's no more transmission in this car. Now, if we were to compare this car to some of the current vehicles that are out there, electric battery operated vehicles, like for example a Tesla Model S, well, that one makes over 500 horsepower and over 800 foot-pounds of torque. And currently Ford has a program where they're racing a Mustang, an electric powered battery operated Mustang, and that thing's in the low 8s and it weighs 5,000 pounds. So it's really hard to compare the two. Also, that Mustang, it should be noted that it has 4 coolers on that electric motor, and each one of those coolers are $13,000 American each, times 4. An expensive setup. However, it's very quick. There's a lot of torque to be made with electric motors. Anyway, I really, the rumor is that it's going to stay in this current configuration. It's never to be changed again. However, I'd like to remain optimistic on the whole deal. It would be nice if the ever-evolving car continues to evolve, and certainly GM Performance does have a 1,004 horsepower naturally aspirated pump gas 632. It would be really nice to see that thing make its way into Project X, kind of restore it to its former glory. I don't think the hot rod community, there's been so much bad feedback on this whole deal. I don't think the hot rod community is ready for this EV thing. I certainly don't think I am. Maybe in the future, but we're just not ready yet. So there continues to be lots of bad feedback on this, and a lot of people are threatening subscription cancellations to Hot Rod. And Hot Rod actually didn't provide, they didn't actually do this. They let it happen. But it would sure be nice to see that 632 or some kind of combustion engine make its way back into that 57 Chevy. And, everybody, I think, would be a lot happier. Anyway, guys, what say you? Let me know what you think. Just give me some comments and feedback on this whole thing. Yeah, it's been a couple years now. It's been turned into a glorified golf cart, for lack of a better term. It weighs a lot, and that battery's heavy, and it's not near as it's not on the same playing field as the rest of the electric cars out there. So anyway, let me know what you think. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys again. Thanks for watching.